Hello everyone and welcome back, and I'm going to discuss today the same topic I did last week, except I'm going to make sure that I clarify myself a bit. So, I got told that I need to start using a script because I was far too conflicting about my discussion on free speech, the alt-right, and the alt-light. And one of the things I mentioned was that the alt-right and the alt-light are fighting, and I'm not sure that it's a bad thing. And they're fighting because they're debating ideas, and they're trying to create a kind of centralized idea and theme for the movement of the Republican Party in the future. And that is good, because that's competition of ideas. But some of the actions that were going on, such as the shutting down of the Trump play in D.C., that's not debate, that's totalitarianism. And so we don't want to be shutting things down. We want to be discussing the ideas and debating them with reason and logic, not using authoritarian force to stop things we don't like. And while it was kind of funny to see the people storm the stage and act a fool, it ultimately was useless and pointless, which is one of the reasons I disagree with taking that action. Because it didn't change hearts and minds. It didn't create a dialogue and change the way people are thinking, behaving, and interacting. It just looked a fool. And it's the same thing that we used to see out of the skinheads and neo-Nazi parties of the mid and late 80s, were that they were just giant fools. And even some of the neo-Nazis of the early 90s were just giant fools. Why? Because they were not realistically trying to do anything but live in an echo chamber. And when you start shutting people down because you disagree with them, that is echo chambering yourself. If you can debate them out of their idea or debate them into such a position that others leave the idea, that is actually being involved and being active and becoming part of the solution. So what we need to be looking at is less shutting people down and more enlightening others as to why their position is a bad position. And that requires that we use rhetoric, not totalitarian force. And I know a lot of people think that rhetoric is a bad word, but all rhetoric actually is a method of oral speaking, a method of publicly discussing an idea, philosophy, or thing. And many people today do not really understand rhetoric. And I like to use the classical Greek and Roman rhetoric techniques, which are modernly taught as part of debate and public speaking, which includes rhetorical fallacies and rhetorical theory and doctrine, and how to support your statements using evidence and logic. And these are good things, and they're difficult things for most people to do, pick up, or understand. So I don't necessarily blame people for not understanding them. For those of you who thought I didn't have a script, I actually did. I had worked on that speech multiple days last week, and it was actually rather difficult to get a clean take of it. I got interrupted several different times and ended up doing more than 5 or 6 takes before I got what I got. And if it was confusing or off-putting to people, I will apologize now, because I can be wrong just as easily as anyone else. But I hope that my revised thoughts and my better discussion at this point has brought some clarity to your minds. I'm not supporting the totalitarian tactics. I'm supporting actual libertarian concepts, which is free exchange of ideas, free debate, and allowing free speech to be the best disinfectant. Because if I try to censor others, they're going to try to censor me. And I am a much smaller voice than many of those I am trying to debate. And if they can censor me out of existence, then there's no hope for anybody else getting their piece said. So I'm going to continue fighting for the idea of free speech, and I'm going to continue pushing a rhetorical debate as opposed to a shutdown of my opponents. And yeah, when I go hardcore and I seriously argue with someone, it looks like I'm trying to shut them down, but I'm not. I'm trying to expose all of their ideas for what they are, which is the concepts that they have espoused are not the best ideas from my perspective. And here is why. Thank you all again for joining me. I'm sorry if last week's free speech alt-right and alt-light gave any confusion. I hope that this has clarified my position for a lot of people. And I hope y'all all have a great weekend. Thank you again for joining me.